All right. If you're a Trump fan, I got great news for you. If you're not, which is probably most of you, you're going, no. Poll numbers are out. Trump has got great approval ratings on how he's handling coronavirus. And for those of you following the news, I mean, you're watching this, so there's a better chance that you're following the news. You got to be thinking, what? This guy has botched it in 1,000 different ways. How can the numbers be good? First of all, let me tell you the numbers. And then I'll tell you why I think that's the case and what I think is going to happen in the future. And let me also say, as always, tyt.com/go. So it's not as always. We started it this month. It's an audience fundraising drive that is absolutely critical to keeping us in business. tyt.com/go. Thank you. All right. So now, in terms of what the numbers are, a new Gallup poll out, and 60% of the country approves of Trump's handling of the coronavirus outbreak. That's the highest number recorded yet, which it's stunningly high. And the way that it breaks down, you're not surprised at the first part. Republicans approve of him handling this at a clip of 94%. What don't they approve of him doing at 94%? But actually, there are some answers to that. Hopefully, I'll get back to that in a second. So anyway, Democrats' approval of him is all the way up to 27% on this issue, which you might think is pretty low. But no, normally it's, around 10 points on any given issue that Democrats approve of Trump. This is all the way up to 27. For independents, the number is 60%. So that is how it breaks down into different groups. So it has also driven up his overall approval numbers. And this is only the second time ever he is above water. So for 3 straight years, he has been more unpopular than popular. So that is among the reasons why I've said millions of times on the show, I think his chances of getting reelected are very low. Right now, you're thinking, oops, hold, we'll get back to that, okay? So one other time in February, he got to a point where he was 1 point more popular than unpopular, more favorable than unfavorable. This is his second time doing it, and this time it's 49 to 44. So by far his best showing, 5 points favorable as opposed to unfavorable, which for Trump is a near miracle. Okay, now let's get to why. Wait, he has botched this 1,000 different ways. So number one, most importantly, he didn't take immediate action at the federal level to get more ventilators, to get more masks, to get more tests. All three of those were critical mistakes that are already huge problems, but likely to be even bigger problems as we go forward. He closed down the pandemic center. Oh my God, it doesn't get any worse than that. The office that was supposed to take care of pandemics, he decided, we don't need that. We need a $2 trillion tax cut for the rich, but we don't need the pandemic office. It doesn't get any more of a oops than that. So it's like Bush closing down counterterrorism operations right before 9/11, if that were to happen, right? But he's a Republican, so they almost all get away with everything, right? Rudy Giuliani put the response to emergencies in the World Trade Center, full well knowing the last terrorist attack before 9/11 was directed at the World Trade Center. By the way, a reporter we recently hired broke the story on how it turns out that the reason Giuliani did that is because that was his donor who controlled WTC-7. And that's why he put the emergency center there, and it totally collapsed on 9/11. Okay, anyway, check out tyt.com/investigates for more of those kinds of stories. So now we have all those bungling, and then we've shown you the tape on the main show of Donald Trump saying like, we've got millions of tests, 1.4 million tests, 4 million tests, back down to 2 million tests, back to 1.2 million tests. He's all over the place. He's making up things left and right. He's making up things about cures. So why on God's green earth is he polling so well? Because most people don't know any of that. So the number one mistake that everybody makes in life, and it also is true in politics, is thinking is the inability to escape your own perspective. So if you watch the news a lot, And if you're watching this video, you have a higher chance of watching the news a lot. You might know some of those facts or all of those facts. If you do, then you would rate Donald Trump's performance very, very, very poorly, as you should. But most people don't track the news that closely. So what happens in a normal emergency situation is it is human instinct to rally around the leader. So Bush should not have gotten credit for 9/11. That's insane. In fact, if you remember when he was at his ranch in August and he told the CIA official giving him a warning about how bin Laden is determined to attack inside the United States, he said, "You covered your ass, now go back home." And he didn't do anything about it. So his popularity should have gone down after 9/11 because he just, on his watch, the biggest terrorist attack in American history happened. He said he was so tough and strong and he was going to prevent terrorism and was going to keep America strong, and instead we got a terrible terrorist strike. No, instead what happened was his approval rating rocketed to above 90%. The reason is the natural human instinct to rally around the leader when there's an emergency. So that's happening with Trump right now. You combine that with the fact that people don't know how badly he's bungled it. Everybody has different levels of information that they have on a spectrum. And you put those two things together, and it is normal for any leader, even Trump, to get a bump up in a huge emergency-like situation like this. Now, the last question then is, will it last? Well, generally speaking, those bumps do not last. So George H.W. Bush, Bush Sr., he had a huge bump up from the Persian Gulf War, but then a little over a year later, he lost re-election. And at that point, he was above 90% too after the Persian Gulf War success, right? But what happened is the economy started to lag. People forgot about that. They started, and the buzz of either an emergency or a big victory wore off. Once the buzz wears off, then you get settled back down to reality. Okay, so how much will it go down from here? Well, partly depends on how long this lasts, partly depends on how Trump handles it going forward. But honestly, the thing that it depends on most, and so buckle up, brace for impact, is how well his opposition gets information out about his true record. I say buckle up because the Democratic leadership is historically completely and utterly incompetent at that. World's worst marketers. Their ability to attack progressives is sky high. Their ability to attack Republicans is nearly nil, nothing, nada, right? So if we had an effective opposition, so for example, if right now a Democrat was in charge, if Hillary Clinton had won the election, what you would hear nonstop on Fox News, which would then jump over to CNN and MSNBC and New York Times and Washington Post, and it'd be on a loop, is she closed down the pandemic office. Oh my God, she cut budgeting to Centers for Disease Control. How could you cut the budget for Center for Disease Control? She shut down the Office for the Pandemic Response. The pandemic office, she shut it down, she shut it down, she shut it down. Worst, incompetent, it's all her fault, all her fault. And that would work. By the way, if she had done that, that would be true. The person who actually did do that, of course, is Donald Trump. Now, Fox News, on the other hand, is on a perpetual loop, 24/7 to protect Donald Trump and to push out his propaganda. Now, that's super important. That's why his base never shrinks. That's why 90% of Republicans approve of him almost under any circumstances. But if he were to ever lose Fox, and on small little issues here and there he has, then his ratings actually plummet, even among Republicans, and then he gets to his nadir. So what is one instance of that happening is when he abandoned the Kurds in northern Syria. A lot of people went on Fox News, they're like, that's not good, that's abandoning our allies. And his numbers started to dive with Republicans and overall. So here, Fox News will not break. But the minute CNN jumped out and said, Trump is looking presidential on how he's handling this coronavirus bill, and we talked about that on the show when it happened, boom. Now you got everybody saying, wow, Trump's doing great. So, guys, media is everything. Because how is anyone going to get information other than media? So whether you consider some article you read online as media, or you consider CNN or New York Times as media, they're all media. Fox News, they're all media. We're also media. That's why we think it's so important to be honest with you guys and to get the truth out to the best of our ability. That's again, really, that's why we do tyt.com/go, because either you're going to get propaganda from people like Fox News, or honestly, establishment propaganda from the New York Times and the CNNs of the world. Here, it's not as relevant. Here, in politics, when it comes to progressives running for office, it's enormously relevant. But here, how it applies is the CNN and the New York Times of the world are desperate to give Trump credit for anything at all, so they can say, see, we're not biased. We call it 50-50. We call it 50-50. Well, when you got Mussolini in charge, you should not call it 50-50. So we are not in the business of calling it 50-50. We're in the business of calling it as we see it. And we're honest about our perspective to you guys. And we're honest in trying to get you the best available information. And we ask you to look it up yourself as well to confirm, because you should get as much information as possible. So tyt.com/go to make us sustainable so we can keep doing this. But that's your phenomenon explained on why Trump is doing so well in his polling right now. And if I'm correct, and there's one last element of this, that I think this disease is way more contagious than people realize. Maybe not as fatal as the numbers in Italy show, but more contagious. Those are two different issues. Then my guess is there will be a further appearance of resurgence of coronavirus. The reality is we're not testing very many people in America. Once we test those people and the contagion continues, we'll have more and more cases, and in which case the buzz will start to wear off and Trump's numbers will start to come down. We'll see if that is how it plays out. But that's the situation right now. And guys, always get the most up-to-date information, including all the videos, including from Trump's press conferences, during the main live show, which is tonight. It's every night at 6 o'clock Eastern. You could watch it at youtube.com/tyt or tyt.com/live. And thank you guys for participating and for being part of the Young Turks. We'll see you soon.